Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And thanks for joining us for this webinar around charity disposal assistance for for our respective agencies. So I am Julie Mitchell, and I'm with the Hazardous Waste Management program in King County. And I'm with Kiana. So Kiana, if you want to introduce yourself.
And I am Kiana. I am with Pinellas County Solid Waste, and I am an SQG inspector over here with the county.
So we are going to talk about our respective charity disposal waste assistance programs. And so I will be going first. And the charity assistance that we do is on the hazardous waste side. Illegally dumped hazardous waste. And so I'm going to share screen and take you through our program that we do. So let's hope that the technology cooperates. All right, so Kiana, can you confirm that we can see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great, thank you. So what we do is we are able to assist some of the charities for, as I mentioned, the sometimes when they get the hazardous waste illegally or inadvertently, I shouldn't say dumped on them, but where it comes with some of the materials or some of the items that they accept. Sorry. Okay, so firstly, just to talk a little bit about the our program and what we have is we do have 3 fixed facilities in King County, including Seattle. And we have a fixed facility in Bellevue that serves much of East King County. There's a South Seattle hazardous waste facility, and it serves South Seattle and some of South King County outside of the Seattle city limits. And then there's a North Seattle hazardous waste facility that serves North Seattle and some of North King County that's outside of the city of Seattle. We also administer mobile collection events, and those are the events that go around to the different cities and towns in King County outside of Seattle. We also have another mode of mobile collection service down in more south end of King County, and it's in a town called Auburn, and we have 49 out of 52 weekends service there on Saturday and Sundays. So in addition to being able to take the residential and we also take CSQG or VSQG waste, with that, we also recognize that what was in the purview of our program was to be able to assist charities that sometimes get stuck with hazardous waste. We had also been approached by probably the largest charitable organization that's probably in all of your areas, the Goodwill organization. And so they contacted us, the hazardous waste management program, and they said, hey, we're getting these materials. They come from households, so they qualify as household hazardous waste, but it's getting really expensive for us to contract with the hazardous waste vendors to get rid of this, and it's also money that's being used to manage the HHW that would otherwise go into efforts to help those community members in need. So, so they approached us a few years back and said, was there anything that our program could do to help them? And so we went back and we talked a little bit about it, and so we decided that, you know what, yes, in fact, we can help, because that's HHW, and even though, yeah, they qualified for the most part as SPGs. It was a different, it was almost like this in between thing, but it also fell within the purview of of, of what we could do to help SQGs manage, and including charities manage hazardous waste. So the first thing that we had to do when we first got approached is we kind of had to set out some guidelines and some criteria. And as I said, it was within our purview to be able to take this. And so the facilities in King County, we can all we can accept these limited amounts of household hazardous waste from the charities. And but again, we wanted to outline some criteria and also help them to implement some best management practices. So of course, the first thing that we kind of had to go about is making sure that the under some of the state regs, with the definition, that they would meet the definition of charitable organization, and that's any entity that solicits or collects contributions from the general public where the contribution is or is purported to be used to support a charitable activity, but does not include any commercial fundraiser or commercial fundraising entity. So, so that was the first thing, is that we wanted to kind of set out and make sure that our organizations that we were assisting met that definition. And then, as you can see there on the chart, they had to meet some of these other criteria. We also needed to kind of work with the organizations on a case by case basis with regards to what they had. So we needed to develop quantity and disposal frequency limitations, and have that in conjunction with the facility. So for example, I talked about our North Seattle facility, and that's one of the small but mighty facilities. So they have some capacity and limitations. And so it might have been a better fit for the organizations to be able to bring, say, something to the Bellevue facility where it's newer and we have more space, as opposed to having them take it to the North Seattle facility, even though it may be in a little bit closer proximity. So these are some things that we would discuss, and we would go through and vet with the charitable organization that had these materials. Also, it could, some of our case by case considerations could be requirements for obtaining pre-approval for waste inventories, and then scheduled drop-off times. And we actually have a team, the business services team, that is available to go through actually on site and help out the charities to go through these pre-approval and these go in and take a look at the waste that they have, and then they would work with us to work out drop-off times at our facilities. We also had to set up some other understandings or criteria, as far as we didn't want the charities to bulk any household hazardous materials prior to the collection, or prior to delivering it to our facilities. We actually had one location where they were trying to be efficient and they were trying to save some money. So they were actually bulking materials, but they were really aware of some of the proper grounding procedures and some of the Washington state regulations around what facilities or what locations are actually permitted to bulk. So that was also another learning opportunity for them through our business services team to be able to help them manage that waste, and then also educate them on some of the regs of the do's and don'ts around that. Then also I mentioned that we helped formulate best management practices, and again, they're listed there on the screen, but there were some key BMPs that we wanted to make sure to work with the charities around, and I mentioned the business services team, and they would go on site, and well, in conjunction, our collection program, along with the business services team, we were able to create these best management practices then that we would share with the charities. The business services team, we also have what's called a voucher program, where it's a matching funds program. And there are matching the voucher where you can get matching funds up to $599, because I think once you hit that $600 threshold, then there are some tax implications. But it would help offset the costs that a charitable organization would use to manage waste that perhaps wasn't acceptable at our facilities. The collection end of it, along with the business services team, develop and help the organizations develop and use standard operating procedures to minimize the hazardous waste that they could end up with. So, for instance, we took a look at are there materials that could be reused on site, best management practices around separating materials that could be disposed of as solid waste or just garbage versus hazardous waste. So we wouldn't get all these mixed loads by the time that they got to us. So teaching them to do a little bit better sorting on their end before they came to our facilities. Also worked with them on making selected materials available for reuse offsite through the Hazardous Waste Management's Industrial Materials Exchange. That's a little database exchange program that we have, where if a particular industry or business has something, they list it, and another business would be able to take it, and it's something that they're looking for, and then they could just exchange it and for free. And then we also worked with them on some anti-graffiti strategies. So these are some things that we worked with the organizations on. And again, not bulking any materials before delivery to the collection facilities. So I've talked a little bit about this business services team that we work with to help out the charities with regards to being able to dispose, but then also to try to minimize some of the hazardous waste that they may inadvertently receive. And this is our amazing business services team. And yeah, they go out on site, and they are also really awesome people about creating relationships, not just with the charities, but with the different businesses that they assist all the time, and the different sectors. And so not only are they very knowledgeable and very personable, but they are amazing as far as being relationship builders. So I just wanted to give a shout out and give some props to our business services team, who I work and my other counterparts in the collection service or in the collection facilities. We work really closely with them. So and then these are the folks that they assist the charities in creating signage, and they help craft training materials for the staff at the organizations, and they just do some amazing work. And they're also the ones that issue the vouchers for that voucher program for some matching funds. So that is kind of my presentation. Of course, this is recorded, and you all will be able to reach me. But I am going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kiana. And then I think at the end if you want to drop some stuff in the Q&A, or if you, yeah, we can get to your questions. So there you go, Kiana. Thank you. And Kiana,
Bear
I'm
with
not.
me one
There you are.
second.
There you are.
Can you
Okay, now we can hear.
And you could see the PowerPoint?
Can see it and can hear you.
Okay, give me one second. There we go. Okay. So my name's Kiana, and I work at Pinellas County Solid Waste as an SQG program inspector. My team does also manage 4 other programs that aid in our waste diversion efforts. One of those being our wonderful charity-free disposal allowance program that I'm going to be talking to you about today. So I originally gave this presentation at the NAMA conference in Tempe with my wonderful coworker, Don Stillwell, but unfortunately he was unable to present today. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to him for helping make this presentation possible. So first off, where the heck is Pinellas County? It's this little peninsula on the left side of Florida in the Gulf of Mexico. In Pinellas, there isn't much green space as we are the most densely populated county in Florida, and we're surrounded by water, which makes us a hot tourist destination as well. Our solid waste disposal complex is right in the center of Pinellas County, and it's actually only the only place you could bring garbage to in the county. And unfortunately, once our landfill is full, we'll have to truck our waste out of county. So we really need to divert as much as we can. We may be the only facility you could bring garbage to in the county, but we are a pretty cool facility, in my humble opinion. So welcome to the one-stop shop. We've got a household hazardous waste center. We have a yard waste to mulch processing area, tire processing. We have metals collection. We've got asbestos disposal, a class 1 and class 3 landfill, and of course our waste to energy plant. We also have an industrial wastewater treatment facility that treats all of our leachate that's on site and feeds it back into the waste to energy plant as cooling water. So we're actually a no discharge facility. And we even host a business hazardous waste collection event once a month at our facility. We are only the 7th most populous county in Florida, but we are the most densely populated. We have about 3,500 residents per square mile. Tourism is huge here. We bring in about 15 million visitors a year. Lots of people means lots of garbage. We average about 1,400 transactions a day, typically bring in over 90,000 tons of garbage a month. We do try to send about 90% of that to the waste to energy plant. So what goes to our landfill is non-burnable waste. If we're in a diversion due to waste to energy maintenance or we're reaching daily capacity, the remaining waste will go to the landfill. And then we also use our ash from our waste energy facility as cover. So our current site life of the landfill is February 2103, which seems to be far off, but if I live to be 104, I will see our site close. So that's why we developed our master plan of zero waste to landfill by 2050. So we're nearing capacity, and not long from now, we'll be over capacity. We really stress the 4 R's of waste management: reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover in our waste energy plant. We have a lot of waste minimization efforts and promote recycling. As I mentioned, we have the on-site scrap metal and yard waste recycling. We have private recycling contracts. A big part of our plan is collaborating with partners. So my team alone does help manage 5 of these programs to help with these efforts. One is our Where Does It Go search tool, which is a great online resource for businesses to find other options besides us for reuse and recycling. We have our business collection event for our VSQG facilities. We have a Clean Marina program, our SQG inspection program, and then, of course, our charity-free disposal allowance program. So we really want to encourage charities to divert waste, whether through reuse or recycling, instead of throwing it out and coming to our disposal complex. We also want to be supportive of our partners that are helping to divert from us, and we'll help them responsibly manage, i.e. recover what they cannot divert. So our county commissioners passed this resolution that approved a recycling program for our county. It permits charitable organizations that have been approved by our technical management committee to dispose of non-recyclable materials at our Pinellas County solid waste facility without paying a tipping fee. Our tipping fees are $51 a ton, a flat fee of $11.75 for pickup trucks or $4.25 for a carload. So charities will go through this application, which I will explain in the next few slides. And then prior to the start of each fiscal year, our solid waste staff recommends the disposal waiver to the TMZ for the charities that are eligible. And then basically the amount of tonnage that we would be accepting that's subject to waiver of the tipping fee. So to be an eligible charity, they have to first, of course, be a qualified 501c3, and they have to achieve at least a 50% diversion rate, which I will get into in the next couple slides. When they do apply, they can only count the materials they collect in Pinellas County, and then only the waste that's actually generated in Pinellas can be disposed of at our disposal complex. So the larger thrift stores that may have a footprint in surrounding counties can't count any of that material or bring any of that material to us for disposal. Also, only the waste that's generated from the operation, their recycling and reuse program is eligible. So things like C&D, debris, or landscaping waste wouldn't be eligible. We pretty much have the same charities every year, but we do advertise it with flyers. They apply, and then prior to the start of each year, we'll recommend the disposal waiver to our technical management committee for the charities that are eligible, and we'll present the amount of tonnage that is subject to waiver. We will also do a site visit to verify all the information that they put on their application was correct, and then we'll also inform them of their hazardous waste compliance. So there's 3 sections in the application. The first section, Section A, is for materials they recycle. They will fill out the tonnage for cardboard, e-waste, metals, etc. And then they will also include the outlet that the materials are going to. The next section is for materials they reuse, like in this instance, food being donated to food pantries or the thrift store sales that they have. And that's in tons as well. And then finally, they will include the tons of waste they disposed of at both our solid waste disposal complex and then any other facility that they may have had to take materials to. Then the information is plugged into a diversion rate calculator, which is basically the total material diverted divided by the total diverted plus disposed of. And then that'll spit out a diversion rate percentage. So here's an example of it all filled out. This charity received about 1,500 tons. They reused over 17,000 tons and disposed of about 3,700 tons. Their diversion rate was 84%, so they do qualify for the program. And then since this rate is actually over 75%, they can qualify for the maximum amount of allowance. At the bottom, you can see the breakdown of all their recycled materials in tons. So charities can receive up to a ratio of 1 ton disposal allowance at our solid waste complex for every 3 tons that they divert. So here are our 7 charities for the last fiscal year. The greatest possible revenue loss if each of the qualifying charities used 100% of their allotted waiver would be $569,165.61 based on waiving 11,919.70 tons of disposal costs at our tipping fee. So that's just a drop in the bucket for responsible waste management, right? So once they reach their allowance, they are charged the regular tip fee. So a charity could just blow through it in a month theoretically. But here's the lowest amount, about $8,600 on the left. And on the right is our big boy that takes in about $300,000 on the right. This big boy actually eats up more than half of the total greatest possible revenue lost. But some of these smaller charities can actually stay afloat because of this program. The one caveat is that they have to have their own trucks to self-haul. It can't just be a dumpster that gets picked up by a hauler and commingled with other people's waste. So if a charity can't drive their waste here, they wouldn't be eligible for the program. But once they are approved and get their letter, they will set up an account number with us and bring in the waste through our scale house. And then every time they come in, the amount is deducted from their allowance until it's empty. I was on a walk one day when I saw one of our charities coming in and I ran over to the scales to get this picture for you. So as mentioned many times, waste diversion is the goal. We hope our charities and all of our businesses, for that matter, maximize these R's, and what they cannot reuse, repurpose, or recycle, we will recover in our waste energy plant. So who are these partners? They all have a mission to assist the economically, residentially, and employment challenged populations, as well as veterans and pregnant women in need. I won't detail each of them, but the Homeless Empowerment Program is a great example. They get grants and donations, and revenues from the thrift stores help house and feed up to 400 folks experiencing temporary challenges. They also provide dental care. They have a small activities lounge, and they even have a community vegetable garden. The empowerment aspect comes through the teaching of computer skills, helping them get a GED, working on their resume writing skills, and holding job fairs. The St. Pete Free Clinic is actually the brainchild of Warner Butch Anderson. He's a 1965 graduate of a local high school. In his early 20s, he saw a need and co-founded not one, but 2 free clinics in Pinellas County. So this aspect of their mission is pretty simple. They receive bulk food donations from various sources, and they will then distribute the items through food pantries to some 30,000 individuals per month. Additionally, they provide health care, dental care, transitional housing, and counseling. In addition to these smaller local charities, we also have a couple larger household names. Goodwill Industries was founded back in 1902, and they have well over 4,000 thrift stores, and they actually serve those in need in 17 countries. At the bottom are figures that are specific to our local branch, Goodwill Suncoast. They placed about 1,700 people in jobs and serviced over 45,000 people in our community. So site visits, or verifications as we call them, have traditionally been a part of the program's application process. So we actually go out and with our recycling outreach group, and they will verify what was on the application is correct. So the amount of stuff that they're recycling lines up with what's on their application. Our SQG program will look at hazardous waste compliance, but that does not impact eligibility at this time. But let me walk you through charity's operations so you can see everything we've been talking about today. So the thrift store operations are all very similar, particularly at the front end, they'll have a drive-up donation reception area like the one you see pictured here. Donated items are variously sorted. Percentage-wise, clothing is generally the biggest revenue producer. It gets sorted men versus women's, long sleeve versus short sleeve. Sizing is really left up to the customer because there's really no time for that by staff, and these facilities do rely heavily on volunteer staffing. So these images are from different thrift stores. Didn't try to take similar photos, but someone with a good eye will actually sort through all the donated jewelry and they'll pluck out all the expensive pieces from the costume jewelry. One shop actually makes as much as $2,000 a month this way. This one facility also has an eBay room where it's really worth the effort to get a little more revenue selling online than through the thrift shop. Basically, they'll sell items that are really coveted by specialty collectors. Items for sale at the thrift stores include various furniture, place settings, a wide variety of shoes, books, of course, as I mentioned before, clothing, classic vinyl, if you're into collecting those, artwork and tchotchkes. I'm a minimalist, but tchotchkes are always a big hit in the thrift stores. Of course, not all items donated are worthy of sale, so broken, rusted, or otherwise unsellable metallic junk becomes scrap metal, another revenue stream for them, and a waste diversion opportunity for their application under the recycling section. More recycling opportunities include silver and silver-plated items that are too dinged up or tarnished to sell are actually sold to vendors who will melt them down and make new silver out of them. Most of these charities do not accept electronics, but they do unfortunately get them. They usually don't work or don't work well, and they will get recycled as e-waste. Textiles that are too ripped up, stained, or torn are baled, and then they're actually sold to brokers who will ship these items overseas. The bales in the stores are usually stacked about 4 high and 20 deep, which is the capacity of a semi-truck. Aside from the thrift store sales, this is another way that the charities can fill in their applications. So the reality is these thrift stores and the food banks as well have a very unique business model. You know, a typical retail store has the time to sell and they can order and restock as needed, whereas a charity's thrift store has items coming in daily. Donated items aren't really making them any money sitting in the back room, and they don't have a lot of space to stockpile donations. So they really do need to sell their materials as quickly as possible so they can process more items coming in. One of our larger charities actually holds auctions every Monday through Friday for items that don't sell quickly at the thrift store. It's a very quick and easy way for them to turn over large amounts of items. There were about 25 bidders the morning we were there. So attendees of the auction will get about 15 minutes to poke around through all the bulked bins prior to the start of the auction. It's kind of like that show Storage Wars, where you may not know everything that's in the container, but it is yours if you purchase it. Furniture that's too dinged up to sell is bulked and auctioned at the larger thrift stores, like you see on the left. The items that you see on the right are from a much smaller thrift shop with very little storage space. And unfortunately, this will get hauled to our solid waste disposal complex and go into our waste to energy facility. Two of my coworkers actually refinish and sell furniture as a side hustle, but those thrift stores, even the big boys, really don't have the time or labor to refinish these items beyond a quick spot of touch-up paint. So unfortunately, many other donated items which can't be sold in any way, shape, or form end up in roll-offs destined for our waste energy facility. I can't emphasize enough the unique business model. These items have to move, so the charities incentivize with price reductions, At Goodwill, if an item doesn't sell at the thrift store, even after discounts, it will go to their outlet store and get offered up by the pound. So load up your shopping cart with textiles, $2 a pound, books 75 cents a pound, need some purses, they're only $1.29 a pound. But unfortunately, these charities receive items that they cannot sell or illegally bring to us as municipal solid waste. Gating off donation receiving locations can help. Posting signage, with the threat of video surveillance may deter those wishful donations. Posting upfront policies on what items are not accepted, for instance. One of our charities has a monitor so that when people drive up to drop off donations, the staff can quickly get out there to greet them and then screen their donations to make sure nothing unaccepted is sneaking in. But unfortunately, hazardous waste can sneak in, and the charity may also have their own stock of these items that become a waste. Wastes, of course, accumulate, and storage can be variable in terms of compliance. Items are often temporarily stored prior to hazardous waste determination. This facility was cleaned up, by the way, and has a much better hazardous waste central accumulation area. But what can these charities do with hazardous waste? We encourage our VSQG charities to utilize our cost-effective business day for proper hazardous waste disposal. These take place once a month at our Household Hazardous Waste Center, where myself and our contractors will actually process the waste, and the contractors will take it for hazardous waste disposal. We do not allow businesses, including charities, to bring hazardous waste to our Household Hazardous Waste Center for processing. So the bottom line is waste diversion. We also want to assist these charities with proper disposal of materials and minimize their use of funds that would otherwise go straight through the organization, helping vulnerable communities and their members. Pinellas County really has truly incentivized this through our charity free disposal allowance program. And that's all I have. Let me unshare. And we'll bring Julie back on, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
And I think you can either drop them in the Q&A, or I don't know, with the raise hand. I don't know, Kelly, if you can unmute folks, but we have a couple different ways.
Thanks for coming and listening to us today.
Oh yeah, and thanks guys. Sorry. See, Kiana, that's why I need you here to help me with my manners.
Everyone should be allowed to speak now. If they'd like, they can just unmute and ask their question.
Thank you. Oh, I see something in the Ken.
Well, first off, I just want to thank you both for presenting today. It was great information, and I am planning to reach out to both of you to get some additional content here as I plan to propose this to our board of directors for consideration in addition to our program, because I think this would benefit the community in general, but specifically some of those organizations, and really take the burden off them and also help us achieve those waste reduction goals. So thank you very much for presenting today.
Very welcome. I'd be happy to answer any more questions you have, and we would be really excited to see more of these programs or variations of these programs pop up around the country.
One thing that wasn't in my presentation, but is was sort of a third party, was our local health district, our local health department. We did our business services team, and then also our collections, and we talked with them a little bit as far as what would, constitute any sort of, either violation or what's permitted or permissible for the organization to do versus what's not. And so that's why I think I mentioned the no bulking a couple of times, because we didn't want them to get in trouble and then somehow make that a deterrent to, well, we don't really want to talk to you now because we're in trouble. So we did try and smooth those waters a little bit and try and get that coordination and really an environment of, let's help and figure out how we can all sort of meet our respective missions, and then still do the good in the community that the charitable organizations are intended for. So that was and so Ken, that's something else maybe as you're considering things, kind of getting in maybe a little earlier than what we did with the local enforcement authority, to make sure that everything's kind of in order.
Great, thank you.
Well, if there's no other questions, thanks folks for coming. And yeah, you've got our contact information, and of course this is recorded. So if you think of anything later, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good rest of the day, everyone.